We got obviously we talked about that Dallas game, that big revenge game against Dallas after what they did to us, shooting like 33s, making them in that first matchup. But took a late comeback and all of our energy to pull away from them. But the big takeaway was the questionable health of our two stars, Joel Embiid and James Harden. And after the game, Harden said some stuff about his injury. He quote, trying to do the proper things to continue to maintain it, finish off these last 6 games, and be ready to take that last week of preparation. I don't think it's just going to completely go away, but I'm out there. He also went on to say that he didn't know where it came from, but it's been bothering him for some months, to the point where the last game he played, it was unbearable and couldn't even go out there, which was kind of concerning to a lot of people online. Everyone just kind of took that part and was like, ugh, like this doesn't sound good at all. So my question to you guys is, on a scale of 1 to 100, how worried are you guys about James's injury and Joel's calf injury?
Well, I mean, as far as Joel first, early in the game, I think he went for a layup or he went to dunk, and you could see him grimacing a little bit. So that tells me that even though he played and he was productive, the injury's not still still there. James, I didn't see it as much as, if he wouldn't have had these quotes, I wouldn't have necessarily felt the way I feel without him saying that. I didn't really get that vibe about his injury. But with him saying that, I mean, it's a major concern for me, because it almost tells me that we could possibly see them missing games in the playoffs. And I don't want, I don't really want to say it. I don't want that to happen, but that's kind of like always going to be there. You thinking guys having, no back-to-backs, that wouldn't be the case. So, especially in the early round, especially in the first round, we get to these playoffs, we get to the first round, it probably bodes well for us to probably end the series early.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And take extreme leads too, so we can just rest those guys as much as possible throughout those games.
I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but that's where I went when he said that.
James, I've noticed a little something in James. He hasn't had the step he had earlier in the season. I mean, the last 3 games, man, he hasn't shot above 29% in the past 3 games.
But correct me if I'm wrong, though. You feel like he's not
45.
But you feel like he's not getting as many layups into the rim as he has before.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
That could help with your percentage a great deal.
Yeah, he's not blowing by people the way he was earlier in the season. I definitely noticed it's okay, so I'll just do that out of 100 first. So out of 100, I'll give Joel 50 out of 100. I'm scared because 50 just because I've been scarred by Joel injuries in the past. But Joel in general, he's gotten used to over his career playing with injuries. I feel like Joel has mastered playing with injuries, where it's from a broken face to a torn ligament in his hand to a torn meniscus. He's played in the playoffs on all of those. I think all of those at the same time, almost 2 of those. I think he's used to it, and Joel is in the prime of his career to the point where 80% of Joel is still better than most players. So him on an injury, he can handle it. James, at this point of his career, 80% of James is not better than most players at this point. And he's not blowing by people at 80%. In fact, the past couple games have reminded me of the Miami series, James. Not being able to get by people. He's kind of dribbling. And when he can't get by, he over dribbles, which takes us out of our offensive set. So it's not just him that's affected by it. It affects everybody. I'm a lot more worried about Hardens. I'd say if Joel is 50, I'd say like 80, 85 for Harden. I'm really worried about him. And he said he wants to play the rest of the season. From what he alluded to, he's like he wants to play the last 6 games and then take that next week to rest. So he's going to play on this. And this is not an injury that's just going to go away. It sounds like it's from overusage. And he's going to play another 6 games, and then Is that week going to be enough to rest? I don't know. Hopefully. But yeah, I'm a lot more worried about him. I don't want Miami series James to be our James in the playoffs this year, and it sounds like that's what we might be getting again. And that's terrible after the year we've had.
Yeah. I will say, as far as James's injury, beginning of that game, it did seem like he was kind of, like what you said, look a little bit like Miami Heat series. But second half of that game, I mean, I saw him. I mean, I saw a little bit more of explosion, and they at the second half of that game. So I mean, that was good to see. But then also hearing him say at the end of the game, like Eric said, like, but Eric, do you think that could be more of like giving us more of a competitive edge as we get to the playoffs, like? A team like Milwaukee hears that.
I think he can still be productive. I didn't take it as him saying this is I can't do this. It was just taking him. It was me. I took it more of, hey, I may have to sit down again to calm it down. It may be a thing that I have to sit to calm it. It's not going anywhere. It's going to be here. More so than it's limiting me. It's just something that's not going to leave me without time away.
Yeah. It's by far his worst 3-game stretch of the season, by the way.
Yeah.
15, 5, and 11 points. 9 turnovers in that stretch.
But he sat for a week going into these 3 games, correct? I mean, right? It was about a week.
Yeah, but it's because of this injury, right?
Yeah.
So the games before you sit out, you're probably most affected by the injury. And the game when you come back from an injury, you're still battling it because it's not gone.
But he said he's been battling for some months though. So I mean, he has had this.
But it's come to a head. If you're missing games finally consistently for it, and you're questionable the next game, it's coming. It's getting worse. So it's doing that, right? I mean, you can just see his stats show you everything. I'm 0 of 6 from 3, 0 of 6 from 3. Because when James is a step slower because he's injured, no one gives him that space anymore. It's like, you're not blowing by me. So I'm not going to give you your step back 3. And he's 0 of 6 and 0 of 6 in 2 straight games because he doesn't have that space to shoot threes. They're not giving it to him because they don't think he can get by him. He was getting that space when he was showing a burst. But if he doesn't show a burst, then no room for James. I mean, it's brutal. It's brutal. I mean, he's had a really, really rough stretch. In his last 3 games, he's 2 of 18 from 3, dude. That is bad.
That's rough.
His free throws are down too because they're just playing him straight up and getting in his face for his threes, and he's not getting to the lane. He's not creating contact. Yeah,
they aren't calling as many fouls on him as in years past in general this year, though. It's been a down year for free throw test.
That's going downhill, getting to the attacking the basket. He hasn't done that as much, so he's not going to get to the line as much. But some of that is James not doing it, and maybe that's because of the injury. But some of it is also he doesn't need to do it as much because Maxey does it a lot.
Yeah.
So some of it, I think, is his role kind of being defined a little more to more of a distributor, facilitator, and Maxey being a little more downhill. I see that's happening a little because you look at the team. I mean, you always got Joel who's going to draw the attention, and the other guys outside of those 3 are still getting wide open looks. So
it's his lowest free throws per game since 2011.
Was that OKC?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Erica, I know as far as in the NFL, because the guys in my other podcast always talk about Toradol shots. Is that a thing in the NBA too, getting Toradol shots, like to numb the pain before going out? If you do have like an injury, like the Achilles.
Yeah, I don't know if guys really do that in the NBA as much because it's so many more games, and the NFL is just that one game, and then you got a whole week before you play another game, or 4 or 5 days before you play another game. I think in the league, guys are more like, well, I'm gonna just rest it or procedure more so than shot because there's so many games, and Now you get into the playoffs, then I think if guy may, do something he feels like he needs to do it to play, now I think you get later in the series and it's do or die and you have to win. I mean, you may get more people doing it then, but it wasn't a thing when I played with guys doing that thing.
You also worried about it being the Achilles soreness too? Because, I mean, Achilles soreness.
When I had my ankle, when I broke my ankle in that 2001 season, the first time, before I re-broke it in the playoffs, what hurt me the worst was they called it Achilles tendonitis.
Mm-hmm.
That pain was incredible from what I had. And it wasn't even from the fracture. It was that I had developed that. And that felt like crazy. And I got shot up one time and I said, I'll never do it again. Oof. It made me feel worse.
Wow, really?
I said I'll never again. And I didn't do it.
Made you feel worse when it wore off and the pain came back, you mean?
It never really felt better even when I did it. Like I did it, I got through the game, but it never felt any better than it was feeling. And then it was worse when the game was over. Like it wasn't like they did it and like the pain was free and then it came back and was worse. No, the pain was still there, but then it was worse afterwards.
Damn. Well, hopefully.
I think I did that the Toronto series.
Damn.
I was hurting. It was really bad on my injuries, and that's why I started. If you really watched that whole time, that's why I started coming off the bench because they wanted to limit my minutes and have me play more minutes in the fourth quarter. My minutes were cut by a few minutes, but they wanted me to basically play the whole fourth quarter. So you see me play less early in the game and more in fourth quarters. That was why.
Who was your main assignment? Was Chris Childs on that Toronto team?
Well, my main assignment would have been Vince.
Yeah.
But I didn't guard Vince as much because of the injuries.
Yeah.
But usually
we didn't have George back yet either, right?
I can't remember if George went out that series or not.
I think he was still trying to rehab to get back.
I don't remember. I know he was in the Indiana series, but I don't know if he went out in Indiana series or the Toronto series. I don't remember. But I mean, we had Aaron, but Alvin Williams was the starting point guard for
that's right.
Toronto, and that's who Alvin was guarding primarily. So, but Aaron was starting on Vince.
But throughout that series, though, we went 7 games. Were you like, oh man, here we go? Like this series is gonna last a long time. You were obviously hoping that it was gonna go quick, so you have time to rest it, right?
I mean, well, it was that series. Like the first series, we lost the first game. So you got a series once they've already taken home court.
Yeah.
So no matter what, in order to win this series, we have to win on their court.
Yeah.
Well, it was the tale of two teams, right? Because Lakers swept everybody, and we that year played every game but one possible game before getting into the finals, which was insane, especially for like a battered team like we were. It was like, man, like we couldn't get any rest.
Lakers wouldn't have beat us like that if we were all healthy.
Yeah.
They know that. They'll never say it, but they know.
Mm-hmm.